What if our world followed a slightly different technological path? If the Soviets achieved the breakthrough of the ages, becoming the world's hub for innovation? If robots did all our manual labor and relegated our knowledge into a shared hive mind? Now, what if, after everyone has become dependent on this technology, somebody takes over its systems, turning it all rogue? Today, we explore this beautifully flawed world, analyzing its mechanics and plot a conclusion through our observations. Gear up, comrade, as we share our investigative notes on Atomic Heart. Atomic Heart by developer Mundfish is an explorative first-person shooter with light open-world RPG elements. As Agent P3, along with your trusty sentient all-purpose glove Charlie, you travel from facility to facility, combating murderous robots and parasitic fauna as you work to end a rogue technological takeover. Wielding various familiar weapons ranging from your usual pistol, shotgun, and Kalashnikov to the more technologically based arsenal such as the shock pistol, energy rifle, and railguns. Also available is an array of distinct melee weapons, each with their individual characteristics and handling. A big heavy mace might be slower to swing, but sports more immense damage and stopping power. While your enemies might not react as much to your blade and machete, the faster swings makes it easier to use as you land more hits on your foes, along with various other options. These weapon options are not just available for choice use depending on your situation, but are also key to resource conservation and generation. Your all-rounder physical projectile weapons are great for all purposes, but rely on collected or crafted ammo to function. Though you'll generally be able to salvage ammo from enemies and the environment without issue, the amount you'll find is usually less than what you'll expend between combat encounters. To supplement, energy weapons draw on your glove's power supply to fire, giving them a universal resource that you can always rely on. While this energy resource automatically regenerates over time, the rate is slow, which allow melee weapons to come into play. These close-range implements regenerate your glove's energy on every hit you land, completing the perfect pattern of expending projectile ammo, using energy weapons to supplement when you run out of said ammo, then using melee weapons to recur your energy. Then you have one more trick up your proverbial sleeve, as your handy glove buddy also has combat abilities of its own. Offensively shock your foes, or freeze them into place with the frostbite spray. Lift and hold everyone around you, then slam them down with the mass telekinesis. Spray them down with elementally reactive goo with your polymer jet, or protect yourself with the same goo using the polymeric shield. All of these glove abilities can be simultaneously applied along with your combat weapons, giving you utilities that you can seamlessly use in the middle of combat. While they do have a cooldown after use, they don't consume any sort of resource, letting you cast them guilt-free. This combat system is excellently designed, and is one of the better aspects of Atomic Heart. The weapons and abilities will feel familiar, but are distinct enough from each other to make them all unique to use. Their handling and interactivity with opponents feel fierce and violent. They recoil from your heavy hits and can get knocked off their feet with your blows, but will act viciously, lunging after you, ducking and weaving under your gunshots, and knocking you down with their heavy strikes. Enemies will telegraph their attacks with an action brawler style danger indicator, giving you an opportunity to dodge step out of the way. Enemy projectiles are also telegraphed, either beaming a targeting laser before they fire at you, or launching slow-moving projectiles at you. All of this makes combat encounters feel like an absolute brawl. Enemies will try to surround you, marching you down, while you employ all your resources to try to avoid being beaten down. Encounters typically don't get too swarmy, but enemies are just tanky enough to promote interactivity, but not so much to feel like sponges. As the game progresses, the game throws more difficult encounters at you, and you'll even the odds by upgrading both yourself and your weapons by spending currency or collected resources at upgrade points, those infernal refrigerators. Character and glove upgrades rely on narrow polymer, effectively the game's currency, giving you freedom to choose your builds, in addition, the ability to reset the ability tree, refunding you the spent polymer. Weapons, on the other hand, require more specific resources occurred from the environment and from specific enemy types. These upgrades are more nuanced, ranging from your generic damage and rate of fire increases to the more major overhauls available, like adding an EMP blast to your energy pistol, or special alternative charge strikes to your melee weapons. These upgrades are also visually applied to your weapon, turning what was once a simple-looking weapon into a Frankengun of bolt-on parts and wires. These upgrades, however, require blueprints found in the open world. Atomic Heart technically sports an open world, though in technicality it is mostly optional. Though you'll miss out on certain upgrades, weapon blueprints, and side quests, you can play through the game with no issue following only the path of the main story. Off the beaten path, however, you'll find the aforementioned extras located around the explorable area, along with optional facilities, effectively dungeons, to clear for even more goods. Here, however, is one of the places where your experience might start to dampen. The Soviet utopic style of the world immediately appears impressive, but as you repeatedly visit settlements and facilities, you'll discover that there isn't much variation to this world's palette. Atomic Heart immediately hits you with a visually and technically impressive cityscape at the beginning of the game, but quickly leaves it behind for the smaller countryside settlements and underground facilities. Most of these areas look visually similar, and though you'll explore different areas throughout the story, such as a museum or a theater, visually they all end up looking like the underground research facilities you've explored again and again. Everything is very much a mix of green and gray. Occasionally, though, you'll find yourself in an impressively bizarre dreamscape, but these moments are short and sparse. This feeling carries over to the overarching story, crafting an interesting overall world, but utilizes it in a drop manner. This alternative history, where the Soviets achieved technological superiority with the invention of their alternative version of polymer, a solid yet fluid substance that can hold within itself informational data, allowing it to be both a building material and technological storage. Polymer is central to everything in this world, being the core of character motivations, world building, and even the smaller things such as your weapons and enemies. Most of this, though, go through very little evolution within the 10 to 15 hour campaign. The characters feel one note, evolving little throughout the story. Our protagonist, Agent P3, constantly barks angrily at the goings-on around him, taking out his failures at friends and foes alike. His anger lacks any sort of anti-hero charm, and his occasional quips don't really help his case. Supporting characters and antagonists also come off as mostly unlikable. And though you don't need to be a likable character to be a good character, these characters feel defined by a single trope, going again through very little changes throughout the character arc. The same can be applied to the main campaign. Most of your time is spent on a chase, given only superficial information on your target. You barely interact with every character, whenever it's the target you're chasing or the cast supporting you in the background, and when interactions do occur, it'll typically be just Agent P3 barking angrily at whoever he's speaking to, barely gleaning any sort of useful information. There's a properly interesting world in the background to all of this, with hints of political maneuvering, technological sabotage, and hidden agendas. But every time these plot points come up, they either fall flat with its execution or get pushed out of the picture entirely. There are other things that come up as strange gameplay design decisions or feel poorly programmed. Special enemy bots come constantly to reconstruct destroyed enemies. Normally, this might have been an interesting priority target for you to take down during combat encounters, but they often end up becoming a nuisance, slowly spawning in one by one as you clear the area, after you've cleared the area. They themselves are generally of no danger to you, so you constantly have to choose between standing around for a minute or two, shooting down these slowly spawned bots, or to leave and come back later to the reconstructed enemies you've previously destroyed. Your main method of open world travel, the car, is slow and easily damaged to the point of destruction, and falls to strange physics interactions. You'll find these specific red vehicles occasionally parked on the side of the road for you to use, but for whatever reason, enemies are constantly spawned on the roads that you're taking. Your first instinct might be to ram them, which works to a degree, but also damages your relatively fragile car. A few enemies hit, and you're out of a car. It's also prone to quite literally flipping out whenever you run over an errant loose physics object, making these drives an unnecessarily frustrating affair. Looting in general has a well thought out concept, but doesn't properly execute in reality. Holding the interact button allows your glove to automatically open and hoover up loot from interactables within your crosshairs, placing them straight into your inventory, but there's a distinct fiddliness to all of it. At times, you'll sweep over a shelf, only to discover that you need to hold your crosshairs over a specific area for a little longer, as items are taken out one by your glove. At other times, these interactables won't open for you at all, even when specifically designated as lootable by your scanner vision. Stealth kills, for the amount of effort required to set up, has slightly too long of an animation time, and requires you to mash out the interact button. There is no accessibility option to disable these prompts, making it accessible unfriendly for some. You'll also at times encounter some light platforming sections. While the more simple run and jump platforming is fine and has some interesting mechanics tied to them, the scaling parkour ones are not as tight. Agent P3 moves quite slowly when scaling, and when you need to leap from rail to rail, there's a bit of uncertainty when it comes to how far or high he'll leap. With the platforming in general, I've had more than a few times where I've gotten stuck between physics objects, freezing you in place and soft-locking you, forcing you to restore to a previous checkpoint. The last that I'll mention is the constant pauses that the game forces upon you. Worst of all, the constant door locks that you'll encounter. Every handful of door you encounter, you'll find it either locked with a traditionally pickable lock or locked with a big puzzle lock, sometimes with additional locks within these locks. The first few of these locks were interesting diversions towards your exploration, but as you constantly encounter them again and again with increasing frequency, you'll learn to curse out as much as Agent P3 does for every single one. So, considering all of this, what do I think of Atomic Heart? Well, even with the laundry list of issues that I personally encountered, I still don't have the heart to tell you to completely disregard it. Combat in this game feels brawlish in a satisfying way, hailing to me as a sort of evolution to the often compared to gameplay of the first two Bioshocks. I enjoyed these combat encounters and the giddy progression of my arsenal as I found blueprint and upgrades to change up how I handled my enemies. This allowed me to push through the mediocre, but not completely bad execution of exploration. The bugs and design pitfalls definitely frustrated me at times, but not to the point where I was unable to play until the end. Atomic Heart has a strong core to its design concepts, doing very well with its combat and core world building, but fumbles with its other ideas. If you wish to enjoy this game, you'll need to look past these flaws, none of which are individually deal breakers, but combined may break your enjoyment for this game. I would not easily recommend Atomic Heart to everyone, especially at full price. However, it may be worth trying if it interests you, either through Steam's available return policy, on sale, or as of time of recording, through Game Pass. And there is today's review. Thank you for sticking to the end, and thank you everyone for helping me reach triple-digit subscribers. Here at Second Opinion, we try to promote giving games a second chance, looking through the issues of games, and to focus on what sort of core enjoyment you'll find within them. Thus, we serve best as a second review, used to affirm yourself whenever or not a game will be for you. If any of that sounds interesting to you, then help us out by dropping a sub down below, liking the video if you enjoyed it, and leaving some of your thoughts on the game or channel in the comments below. We also stream most days on Twitch at twitch.tv/secondop. That's second op with the number 2, where we show off newer releases and the more underrepresented older games of times past. Following us on that channel also helps me out a lot. And most importantly, enjoy more games.